Hi class, Mrs. Calvi here. I'm just going to do a quick review on comparing fractions. So in other words, saying what two fractions are less than, greater than, or equal to. And then I'm also going to be reviewing writing decimals as fractions. So let's first compare fractions. Easiest thing to do. So we are going to say we had 2/3 and we are comparing that to 3/4. Easiest thing to do is cross multiply for these, okay? So I'm going to cross multiply. 3 times 3 gives me 9, and I'm going to put the 9 up there because that's going to help me. And then 2 times 4 is 8, and 8 is less than 9, so that means 2/3 is less than 3/4. Okay, so comparing fractions is very simple. Let's do another one. Okay, so if I had... let's say I had 5/6, and I'm comparing that to 2/4. Okay, so I'm going to cross multiply. 6 times 2 gives me 12. 4 times 5 gives me 20. And because 20 is greater than 12, 5/6 is greater than 2/4. Okay, let's try one more. If we had 1/2 and we were comparing that to 3/6, we are going to cross multiply. 2 times 3 gives me 6. 6 times 1 gives me 6. This tells me that 1/2 is equal to 3/6. All right, so that's pretty simple. Now let's review writing decimals as fractions. Okay, so if I had the decimal 0.25, I'm going to read this as a decimal. So how would I say this? Instead of saying 0.25, this is 25 hundredths. Because the 5 is in the hundredths place, I say that place value. So this is 25 hundredths. So I'm going to just write the fraction I just said. I just said that read 25 hundredths. So the decimal 0.25 is read as 25 hundredths. So I took that and I wrote that in fraction form. But then if you notice, this can definitely be simplified down. When we have 25 and 100, the easiest thing to do, think of money, think of quarters, we can divide both of these by 25. And this would simplify down to 25 divided by 25 is 1. 100 divided by 25 is 4. So that would simplify down to 1/4. You have to remember, for the do now today, you must simplify, otherwise you do lose points. All answers need to be simplified down. That's where your rules come into handy, your divisibility rules, right? So 5 and 0, if a number ends in a 5 or a 0, we know that they're divisible by 5. So you could have done these by 5. It would have taken you a little bit of time to get to the 1/4, but it still would have worked. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, so I have a decimal here, 1.4, and I would read this as 1 and 4/10. Remember, whenever we see a decimal, we say the word and the 4 is in the tenths place, so I say that place value. So I read this as 1 and 4/10. I'm going to write exactly what I just said, 1 and 4/10. So this is a mixed number, okay? Now, I would still need to simplify my fraction part down. So if you notice, 4/10 can be simplified. Don't forget to carry over the whole number. That's one very common mistake students make. They simplify the 4/10 and then their final answer, they forget to carry that 1 over. All right. So 4 and 10, those are both even. So I know I can divide by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And it just so happens I cannot simplify any further. So 1 and 2/5 is my final answer. Remember, you guys have your divisibility rules in your binder. Take those out for simplifying to help you out. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, So here I have 3.015. So I'm going to read this as the decimal it is. 3 and 15, and the 5 is in the thousandths place. So this would be 3 and 15 thousandths. So I'm going to write exactly what I'm saying. So 3 and 15 thousandths. Okay, now I can simplify this. Don't forget, carry over your whole number because that's what I said earlier most students forget about. So I'm going to carry over my 3. Now, my numerator and denominator ends in a 5 and a 0. So I can divide both by 5. They're both divisible by 5. 15 divided by 5 will give me 3. So 1,000 divided by 5 is going to give me 200. So right now I have 3 and 3 over 200. Okay, so now 3 and 200, they are not divisible by the same number, so this would be my final answer. I would have 3 and 3 out of 200 for my final answer. So don't forget, for today's Do Now, make sure you are simplifying all of your answers down. Make sure when you are looking to see what the decimal, how you would read it, make sure you're using the correct place value, because if you use the incorrect place value, obviously your answer would end up being wrong. I'm going to do a quick review on comparing decimals. So if I wanted to see which was less than, greater than, or equal to, so we are going to practice comparing decimals. So if I had 0.30 or 30 hundredths, and I want to compare that to 0.03, I need to see whether 0.30 is less than, greater than, or equal to 0.03. So in this case, we're going to go place value by place value. Whole number 0, whole number 0. I always start with my left. Then I'm going to go to my tenths place. I have 3 tenths. I have 0 tenths. Well, I don't need to go any further because I know that 3 tenths is greater than 0 tenths. So I know that 0.30 or 30 hundredths is going to be greater than 0.03 or 3 hundredths. Okay, so when you're comparing decimals, you are comparing place value for place value. Let's try another one here. So let's say I had 2.86, and I was comparing that to 1.86. So I'm going to go place value for place value, starting all the way to the left. I have 2 ones. I have 1 1. Well, 2 is greater than 1, so I don't even need to go any further. I know that 2.86 is greater than 1.86. Okay, so let's try a couple more. All right, so if I had this decimal, and I was comparing it to this decimal. So we're going to go place value for place value. I have 4 in my hundreds, 4 in my hundreds. 0 in my tens, 0 in my tens. Still don't know, I have to keep going. 5 in my ones, 5 in my ones. 3 tenths, 3 tenths. Still don't know. 7 hundredths, 0 hundredths. Well, 7 is greater than 0. So we now know that 405 and 37 hundredths is greater than 405 and 307 thousandths. Okay, so pretty simple. Go place value for place value. Let's try another one. All right, so let's say we had 0.1008, and I was comparing that to 0.0108. All right, place value for place value. 0, 1, 0 ones. 1/10, 0 tenths. Don't need to go any further. 1/10 is greater than 0, so I know that this is going to be greater. Okay? All right, let's try another one. Okay, so here I'm comparing 54 to 54.00. Okay, so, well, let's go place value for place value. I have 5 tens, 5 tens, 4 ones, 4 ones. Don't have anything after my 4 here, but I do have something to the right of my 4 here. I have a decimal and a 0 and a 0. Well, these zeros are irrelevant, so it's the same thing as just 54. So it just so happens that these two happen to be equal. Now let's say I added a number here at the end. Now I have 54 and 54.007. Now, because this is not a 0, it's a number greater than 0, this actually now matters. So now 54 is going to be less than 54.007. Okay, now let's say we wanted to compare decimals by putting them in order from least to greatest or greatest to least. So here I have a couple of decimals. Now, if you remember in class, what I told you to do was to line them up vertically by decimal. So if I'm going to line them up vertically, I'm going to put my 14.35, my 14.3, and then my 14.05. And then this is where it's a little bit easier to compare your decimals. So I want to put these in order from least to greatest, so smallest to greatest. So again, I'm going to compare starting all the way to the left. I have 110, 110, 110. Can't tell which is the smallest. 4 ones, 4 ones, and 4 ones, still can't tell. 3 tenths, 3 tenths, 0 tenths. Well, 0 is smaller, so that's going to be my smallest number. So now I have to move over to the next place value. 5 hundredths, and I don't have anything here, so technically that would be a 0. So 0 is smaller than 5, so that means this is going to be my second number, and then this is my largest number, okay? So then you have to actually put these in the correct order. So you would then put 14.05 is your smallest, 14.3, not the 14.30, because remember, you put the original set in order. And then your last one is 14.35. Okay, so just quick review on comparing decimals. I will talk to you soon.